I have less than $800 in my checking account. I live in a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I chop my own wood. I drive a truck that was already old when most of you were born. I have no investment portfolio, no pension, no LinkedIn profile, no legacy to speak of, at least not one that the people who knew me back then would be proud to claim. Society looks at a man like me and sees a tragedy, a cautionary tale, a genius who lost his way, burned out, fell off. My estranged cousins whisper about me at Thanksgiving tables I'm no longer invited to. Old colleagues, the ones still alive, probably shake their heads when my name drifts through a conversation. Such a waste. And I want to look directly into your eyes right now and tell you something. I am the freest man you will ever meet. I am the most dangerous kind of person this system produces, because I am the one who got all the way inside it, all the way to the very center of the machine, and then I walked out laughing. You want to know the secret? Good, sit down. Because they have spent 40 years making sure you never hear it. It was 1978 when I first walked onto the trading floor of a Wall Street firm whose name you would recognize immediately. I was 27 years old. I had a mathematics degree from MIT and a systems theory mind that some people, serious people, brilliant people, called once in a generation. I wasn't a trader. I was never interested in the theater of the floor. I was the man in the back room, the architect, the one they brought in when the problem was too deep, too technical, too foundational for the men in the expensive suits to solve themselves. And the problem in 1978 was this. Money moved like it was 1930. Paper, delay, human error, settlement backlogs that lasted days, billions of dollars in float just hanging in the air, unresolved, while the world's commerce ground and stuttered and waited. They needed someone to fix it at the level of pure logic, at the level of the system itself. They needed me. Over the next 5 years, I did something that has never been properly credited. And honestly, at this point in my life, I'm glad it hasn't. I helped design and build the foundational electronic settlement infrastructure, the architectures, the clearing protocols, the transaction routing logic that became the backbone of what you now call the ACH network, the automated clearinghouse, the invisible rail that moves nearly every dollar that changes hands electronically in this country. If you have ever received a direct deposit, I built part of the road it traveled. If you have ever paid a bill online, some of the logic I wrote in a server room in Lower Manhattan is still, in some form, underneath that transaction. The Swift International Messaging Protocols. The early interbank settlement compression algorithms. The foundational clearing code. I was there. I want you to understand what that means in practical terms, so you can understand what I walked away from. I was 29 years old, and I had built infrastructure that would eventually process trillions of dollars annually. I had the relationships. I had the credibility. I had the kind of deep technical knowledge that makes powerful men treat you like a priest, with a mixture of reverence and fear. I had every tool to become a billionaire. I had the opportunity sitting directly in front of my face. And then I met Elias. Elias was my senior partner, old money, old name. The kind of man who wore his privilege the way other men wear a watch. Not as a statement, just as a fact, utterly unremarkable to him. He was brilliant in his own way, but where my mind was drawn to elegance, to systems that moved cleanly, efficiently, neutrally, without friction, Elias's mind was drawn to extraction. He didn't see the payment networks I'd built as infrastructure. He saw them as traps. He saw the milliseconds between transaction initiation and settlement as opportunity. He saw the routing pathways as levers. He saw every ordinary person who touched the banking system, the factory worker whose paycheck arrived on Friday, the young couple with the checking account running thin by the 28th of every month. He saw those people not as human beings. He saw them as settlement liabilities, with predictable behavioral patterns. And he wanted to harvest them. The predatory routing fees that quietly steer transactions to maximize bank revenue, Elias. The automated penalty triggers calibrated to catch accounts at their most vulnerable moment, Elias. The overdraft cycles designed not to protect the consumer, but to trap them in a rolling debt spiral they could never quite escape, Elias. With my foundational architecture underneath it, repurposed into a weapon. I watched it happen incrementally, one proposal at a time. One meeting at a time. And each time I raised an objection, I was told that I was a systems man, not a businessman, that the ethics were above my pay grade, that I should focus on what I was good at. And for a while, God help me, I did. Because the work was extraordinary, because the problems were beautiful, because I had never in my life been given resources like this, a stage like this, a challenge like this. Because I wanted to see what I could build. That is how the cage works, by the way. I want you to remember that. It doesn't look like a cage when you first walk in. It looks like an opportunity. It looks like the most interesting room you have ever been in. The door doesn't lock behind you with a clang. It just drifts shut, quietly, while you're not looking. November 1984, Manhattan. A storm coming in off the harbor. We were in a boardroom on the 34th floor. Elias, me, two of his deputies. The windows were rattling. The fluorescent lights were humming. That particular cold, relentless hum that I still hear sometimes in nightmares. A sound that belongs to no living thing, just machines, running, always running. Elias slid a proposal across the table. He wanted me to modify the core settlement timing algorithm. A subtle change, elegant even from a pure engineering standpoint. He wanted to introduce a calculated 24-hour artificial delay into certain categories of transaction processing. The purpose was to create a float window, a gap in which the bank could generate fee revenue on money that technically already belonged to the customer. Not dramatically, not obviously, just a little, multiplied by hundreds of millions of transactions. He was going to skim millions of dollars off ordinary people, invisibly, using my code. I sat there for a long moment, looking at that proposal. And Elias, who had not gotten where he was by misreading rooms, looked at me across that mahogany table and said, and I remember this with complete precision, I will remember it on the day I die. He said, "Arthur, sign it." or I will make sure that when people talk about this network, your name is the one that never comes up. You will be a ghost. You will have nothing." He said it quietly, almost kindly. He meant every word. I looked at him. I looked at the room, the 34th floor, the city lights blurring in the rain, the stacks of documents, the humming lights, the empire. And something happened in my mind that I can only describe as a door opening, not a dramatic realization, not a thunderclap, just a sudden, very quiet, very clear perception of something I had somehow not seen before, even though it had been directly in front of me the entire time. I saw the cage. I saw who was trapped in it. And I realized it wasn't me. Not yet. I pushed the proposal back across the table. I picked up my jacket. Elias said my name. Once. Hard. I smiled at him, and I meant the smile, which I think frightened him more than anger would have. And I walked out the door and into the rain. I have not worn a tie since. Elias continued. Of course he did. Men like Elias always continue. The system is built for them. It rewards their particular genius without asking too many questions about the cost. He made more money than I can fathom. He collected the things that powerful men collect, the houses, the recognition, the deference, the rooms that fall quiet when they enter. He died at 58. Massive stroke. He spent his final days in a private wing of one of the most expensive hospitals in New York City, surrounded by every comfort that money could provide. And he died alone. Not metaphorically alone. Alone. His family, his wife, his children, the people who had lived inside the orbit of his ambition for decades and learned slowly what it meant to be close to a man who measured everything by what it was worth to him. They did not come. I was told through people who were there that at the end he was agitated, angry, calling out for things that weren't in the room. I felt nothing vindictive when I heard that. I want to be honest about that. What I felt was something closer to sorrow. Because Elias was never the villain of a story. He was a man who was consumed by a system he believed he was controlling. He thought he owned the cage. He had lived inside it so long he couldn't see the bars anymore. The most trapped prisoner is always the one who built the cell. Now, I want to talk to you. Not the version of you that performs confidence in meetings. Not the version that has the productivity system and the optimized morning routine and the carefully curated image. I want to talk to the version of you that exists at 11 o'clock at night when the laptop is still open and the apartment is quiet, and you are sitting there in the blue light, feeling something you don't have a clean word for. Not quite sadness, not quite failure. Something more like erosion. Like you have been working very hard for a very long time, and you cannot quite remember what you are working toward. Like you are moving, but you cannot identify the destination. Like you are winning, maybe by certain measurable metrics, but the winning doesn't feel the way you were told winning would feel. I know that feeling. I built the system that is measuring you. I need you to understand something about what you are living inside. The financial and productivity infrastructure of the modern world was not designed to make you free. It was not designed to reward your flourishing. It was designed, iteratively, ingeniously, by very smart people with very specific incentives to keep you productive, to keep you measurable, to keep you slightly anxious, slightly behind, slightly convinced that one more optimization, one more quarter, one more promotion will finally get you to the place where you feel like enough. That place does not exist. It was never built. Because a person who feels like enough stops being a productive node in the system. I am not saying this to make you angry, though you have every right to be angry. I'm saying it because I want you to see the bars of the cage the way I finally saw them on that rainy night in 1984. You are not failing at the game. The game is failing you. There is a profound difference. Let me tell you what my Tuesday morning looks like. I wake up when the light changes in the mountains. Not to an alarm, to light, the oldest clock there is. I get up and I light the wood stove, and the smell of that, the pine smoke, the cold air from the cracked window, the particular silence of a mountain morning before any human sound has entered it. That smell is worth more to me than anything I was ever offered in a boardroom. I make a cup of black coffee. I take it out to the porch, and I watch the fog. In the Blue Ridge in the morning, the fog comes in from the valleys and moves up through the tree line like something alive, like the mountain is exhaling, like the whole world is pausing to breathe before the day begins. I have sat on that porch and watched that fog more times than I can count. It is never the same twice. It is never less than extraordinary. I do not photograph it. I do not share it. It is not content. It is not a moment I am harvesting for someone else's attention. It is just mine. That is what actual wealth feels like. Not the number, not the portfolio, not the status or the recognition or the fear you inspire in other people. It feels like a Tuesday morning on a porch with cold coffee and fog in the valley, and the specific, unrepeatable knowledge that your time is yours, entirely yours, that no notification can reach you, that no algorithm is measuring your engagement, that you are not a data point, that you are not a settlement liability, that you are just a man on a mountain watching the world be beautiful. That is the secret Elias never found. That is the secret they hope you spend your whole life too busy to discover. I am 85 years old. I have less than $800. I have a truck, a cabin, a wood stove, and a view that no one will ever be able to buy from me because I will never sell it. I have mornings that belong to me. I have a mind that is still, after all of it, after everything, entirely free. And I have this message for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, sitting in the glow of this screen in the middle of the life the system designed for you, you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to look at the corner office and the optimization and the performance and the grid, the beautiful, humming, invisible grid, and say, not for me. You are allowed to walk out into the rain. The system will tell you that you'll be erased, that you'll have nothing, that you'll be a ghost. Let it say that. I am the ghost, and I have never been more alive. Let them have the corner office. Let them drown in the grid. You take the freedom.